Good afternoon. This is Pete Buchanan. I'm the founder and director of instruction for Plain Simple Golf Academies and also Plain Simple Golf LLC, which houses our academies and our vacation packages, and soon our new training aid device, which will enhance our teaching program. What I'd like to talk to you today is about the golfer who is a continual slicer of the golf ball, that has the big slice, has always fought the slice, and is trying to figure out what the cause of that is. Now, there have been many theories over the years as to what really causes the slice. A lot of people would always say, well, it's the club face being open at impact. Well, that's the result. That's not the cause. The face open is a result of something else going on. So we've got to figure out why the club face is open and get to that picture. Now, there's been a lot of talk recently that the cause of a club face being open is the swing path. Well, I beg to differ there, because I can promise you, if you've got a right-handed player who's a slicer, who continually is aiming way off to the left here because that ball's curving to the right, I can promise you the curve to the right was there long before this player began aiming and swinging to the left. And that's important to note, because the club face is important to understand when it is open. What is the club face related to? Now, there's been a lot of talk today, even so, that they're relating the club face to the target line, the actual line you're intending the ball to go. Well, where the target is. Now, here's what I'd like you to understand. The club face should be related to, pardon me, let me grab another club, the direction the golf club is actually swinging through the ball at impact. So if this club represents the direction the golf club is traveling, if your club face is open for a right-handed player, that means at impact, your golf club is coming in with a club face looking to the right of the swing's direction. Okay? At this point in time, it has nothing to do with the target line. This is all about the club's direction and how the club face is relative to it. And it's important to understand that, because so many times when you find a slicer that's out there, the very first thing that any kind of teacher tries to do is to get them to square up or aim more at the target. Well, it's very difficult to do, because that player is already afraid of going to the right. So the more you aim them to the right, they're getting even more afraid, because they know they're going to lose that ball to the right. As a matter of fact, I'd probably have a better time in the ring with Mike Tyson with my hands tied behind my back than taking a habitual slicer and aiming them more to the right. That's just not going to happen. They're going to fight you, and you're going to have a fight the entire time you're trying to give this lesson, and you're going to get absolutely nowhere. So what you have to do is you have to go in and figure out, why is the ball slicing? Why is that club face open? What's the cause? And in my experience, there's only several ways that the club face could be open. Now, one of those could be at address. They could simply set the club face down, aim to the right. Now, that's very minimal in the ones that I've seen, because most of the time, if you find a slicer, they're usually closing the club face or aiming it left, trying to get rid of it. The second one would be they could simply set up at address with their grip too much on top of the club. For a right-handed player, that means the grip is too far to the left, what we call a very weak grip. This, in turn, could end up arriving that club face more open. Now, the third one that I find, more importantly than anything else, is a golfer who's got the club in the wrong swing plane. Now, the swing plane is relative to the way this golf club sits on the ground. There's an angle formed between the club and the ball and the ground here, and you can see that. And the golf club should swing on a parallel arc or parallel plane to that. What I find a lot of times in golf is golfers that are going too vertical or too straight up in the air. What goes vertically up will usually come vertically down, and that's going to leave that club face open. You can see from a side view, if this golf club goes vertically up in the air, it's going to come vertically down, and there's that golf club left wide open. This is probably the most common of the slicers that we see. And the other one could simply be in a timing fashion, to where they would, in the downswing, as they're swinging the club down, would get the body too far out in front of the golf club, so by the time the golf club arrives, it's looking too far to the right of the swing's direction. I don't find that one as often, but it can be there. I typically find the one that's getting that big slice is the one that has the club in the wrong plane or too vertical. Now, you can tell which one you are based on the trajectory that your ball goes. If your ball flight is very high in the air, you're the one that's got that golf club traveling very vertical. That tends to hit that ball way up in the air. The one that has the timing issue where they're turning the body ahead, that one usually, when they're turning the body ahead, will have this club more delofted. They tend to hit a lower ball flight. Starts out low left and curves to the right. So you can kind of determine which one you are. Is your slice from a high trajectory or a low trajectory? Now in this case, let's talk about the one that's got the very high trajectory. Now, that's caused by the golf club swinging in a plane that's too vertical, okay? Now, the root cause of that is, in my experience in all the lessons that I've given, is the player at address is in the wrong posture. Posture is extremely important to getting this golf club to swing in a proper plane. And if you're not in the right posture, you're going to have a difficult time getting the body to turn, and when the body doesn't turn, hence you get that golf club swinging too vertically up in the air. So let's look at it. The posture should be one where there's a slight flex in the knees, there's a bend forward from the waist, the upper back is straight, and the arms should hang underneath your shoulders with the weight on the flat of your feet. Now, commonly what I find with those that are very vertical slicers, they set up at address with the weight too much on their heels. And what happens here is if you put the weight on your heels, the minute you try to turn the upper body against the lower body, you're going to lose your balance and fall backwards. So that player knows that they're going to fall off balance because they've tried to do that. So the inner ear takes over their own natural balance, and here's what happens. They sit on their heels, so now instead of the body turning, the body's going to tilt. And now when that right shoulder tilts up in the air, it forces the golf club too much in the vertical plane going up. It's going to re-tilt going down, and there's that wide open club face. That ball goes tailing high and off to the right, so what do? They start aiming over here to try to get rid of that, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this player that when I first ask them to hit balls, and I say, shoot me one down the center of the range, and they aim way over here, I'm not going to change their aim first. That's the very last thing that I would do. I'm going to go in and determine what the cause of the slice is, and then once I determine that cause, I'm going to fix that. And now this player is simply going to start hitting all their balls 70 yards to the left where they're aiming, and now they're going to turn around to me and say, you know, well, this is great, they're no longer slicing, but my target's over here. Well, now I have to discuss aim with them. Up until this point, it wasn't very relevant because they couldn't aim at the target because their ball would never end up there. So this player needs to set at address, and what they really need to do is get their feet further away from the ball, which will lean them more into the golf ball, and now the upper body can simply rotate against the lower body, and as they do that and turn, now the arms can rotate and set the golf club in a much better plane. Now the golf club is swinging in a much flatter plane, which in turn will release, and as you can see from a side view, when it gets in a much flatter plane and the arms rotate, it'll get that golf club to come in much more square and much more in a true loft and drive that ball a little lower and straighter. So it's important that that big high slicer is the one that tends to sit with that posture on the heels. The right side tips, the club can go vertically this way. Hey, they could drag the club inside too and it could still go over vertical. That's still going to back out underneath it and leave that club face wide open. You'll see that player tend to go here and then they'll start aiming and spinning over here to get rid of it. So to get that slice out of there, good posture. Weight forward from the hips. Weight on the flat of the feet. Arms underneath the shoulders. And let's get that body moving in an arc and a turn so the club can go on an arc this side and this side. And now when we get that golf club swinging in that natural arc, that'll drive that ball much lower, much straighter, much more solid. And we'll have that player eliminating that slice. If you need more help with your golf game, don't hesitate to go to www.plainsimplegolf.com, look up our academy sessions, look through our website, and go ahead and contact us, and we'd love to get you started and improve your golf game. Thanks.